This is Kevin Elford of Mignolaverse.com, speaking with Israel Skelton of Skeleton Crew LLC, Skelton Crew Productions. What's the full title, sir?
Skelton Crew Studio LLC. Yep, or Skelton Crew Studio. That's what everyone calls it.
And you are the the CEO, CFO, IFO, GFC.
Yeah, I'm the boots on the ground guy who makes it happen every day.
You're the magic man. That's
I suppose. That's kind of what it is. That's the guy who kind of knows just enough to be dangerous.
That's the correct amount to know in my experiences.
Yeah, sure. Excuse me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How'd you start?
Well, I'm born and bred in Maine. I'm 10th generation Mainer. My family has been here for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I've traveled all over the world, man. I tell you, it just kind of solidifies how lucky I am. No joke. It's like, just to kind of get back. Like when you travel and you come back, like, oh man, this place has really got it all. For me.
Before we go more about you, since you're talking about travel, what's the best place you've been?
I don't know. Spent some time in Africa, then Europe. I'm gonna say Easter Island was pretty cool. Easter Island's pretty awesome. As far as just the remoteness of it, and really kind of even the closeness of it. I'm no joke. This was I don't know, several years ago, but I'm on a beach in the most remote inhabited place on the planet, and I see a guy with a University of Maine shirt.
You guys are everywhere, huh?
Well, it just goes to show you that the world's small, right? It's this tiny little spinning rock, So that's kind of it, It's like, just like here you are, like the most remote place, inhabited place on Earth, and there's a guy who went to the same school you did. And pardon me, I get a bit of a cold, so if I cough, I apologize first.
Oh, no problem at all. So I'm sure our readers would be upset if I didn't ask you. When you went to Africa, did you bring the bell with you, just in case?
No, the funny thing was, I wasn't even really sculpting. I was sculpting, but I wasn't doing this for a living then. It wasn't. Okay. I'll tell you, it wasn't till I used to be a distribution manager. I used to kind of, we had offsite warehouses, and we did fulfillment and a lot of logistics type stuff. And I did that for a long time. And it wasn't until we were on vacation once, and we were in someplace beautiful, and I was kind of griping about going back to work. And the wife was like, "You need to change. Like, this is like, we're in paradise, and all you're doing is thinking about work. Like, you need to change." And that was it. And that was kind of the catalyst. Like, you're right. You are completely right. It's time to kind of take the sculpting to the next level. To kind of do it, for as a job, type of thing. But I've always sculpted. I've always I've always done prop replicas like my entire life. Like turning saucer sleds into Captain America's shield, or blueberry rakes into Wolverine's claws, or
Nice.
Yeah. I've always done it ever since I was a little kid. So even when I kind of started doing this. When I started, I'll fast forward. I'll rewind and I'll fast forward a little bit. So when I was a kid, I went off to college, and I was like, this isn't for me. I'm not built for this, and so I ended up dropping out. My wife was in school, so I ended up just kind of working to kind of like put her through school. She was my fiance at the time, but like I worked jobs. She went to school full time, and the idea was that I would go back to school when she was out. But the trick was, or there wasn't even a trick really. The thing was, I didn't really want back to school. I was kind of over it. I was like, I didn't want to go back. And and I used to dabble in silver and goldsmithing. So I did that for a little bit. And then I just went to work. Started working distribution, and I worked that for a long time. And but when I was working silver and goldsmithing, and you working real tiny and real small all the time, because my father was an amateur goldsmith. So and he always wanted to go into business together, like he would kind of teach me everything, then I would kind of, but I didn't like it. I didn't like working that small. And but it kind of like got the juices flowing again to kind of like start building and sculpting. And so I did. I started building the same stuff I built when I was a kid. It was all, it was all replica stuff. It was all like, Thor's hammer, but Walt Simonson's version of Thor's hammer. And it was, and it was, the Samaritan, but Mike's version, and it was. It was Ant-Man's helmet, and different stuff like that, out of sterling silver.
So let me break some of this up a little bit to separate the background from the beginning here. So when you were younger, you were obviously a big comic book fan.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was, if it wasn't for Marvel Comics and Star Wars, between those two, it's like
Sure.
Disney has a monopoly on my childhood. Like, no
Most
joke.
of us at this point.
Oh
right?
yeah, right. Star Wars, and Marvel Comics, man, was my thing.
Cool.
And I grew up in a real small town. I mean, I graduated with 40 kids. So it was great. I had a great time, but out of 40 kids, I was the only one who liked comic books. It was except for one other kid, my friend Mark Spencer, liked comics, but not nearly as much as I did.
Right.
And it was just like I was alone. I just felt like there's got to be someone who has this like comic fever like I do, and there wasn't anyone that I knew personally. It wasn't until later in life where like, oh my God, like there are people who are like trump me, like who know like what's on every cover of every X-Men issue ever printed,
Sure.
type of thing. Yeah, that wasn't me, but it was like, man, this is kind of awesome, but I still, so I grew up on comics. I probably taught myself to read on comics, but
Cool.
but I've always loved comics. I've always loved, when I was a kid, John Byrne was my guy. He was like, oh yeah, right. It was like he was doing FF, writing and drawing. He had just come off X-Men. He was Alpha Flight. I mean, everything the guy touched was just gold to me. It was just like, oh my God, I love everything that Byrne does. And it's so funny, that Byrne would kind of, give Mike, the kind of push to make Hellboy a thing, right? If it was, if it was
the torch, you might say.
Right, yeah, I know. If it wasn't for Byrne, kind of like, kind of giving Mike the platform, like, hey, why don't you put your character in my book, and make it go, make it run,
Indeed.
and then Byrne helped Mike script the first issue and stuff. I think that's great, but that's what comics is about.
So when you were young, was that your favorite? Was that your favorite comic? Obviously not series, but was John Byrne your favorite artist and writer or whatever?
Yeah, he was. Well, I wouldn't say so much writer because I didn't really have a feel for the writing, if you will, because it was all aesthetics.
Sure.
It was all like I didn't really have a good sense of what I didn't like, but I knew what I liked, right?
Sure.
So like and I knew what I didn't appreciate, like I love Sienkiewicz now, but when I was a kid, did I appreciate Sienkiewicz? No. But by the time Sam Keith came around, I was all in. That hit me at right about the right time, and it was just like this stuff is so innovative and so different and so great. So, but if it wasn't for Sienkiewicz, or the Sam Keiths, Templesmith wouldn't be doing what he's doing. I mean, they kind of, and Templesmith is really kind of in his own kind of arena. Like doing really awesome different stuff. But those guys kind of paved, because when I was a kid, really, if it didn't look like Perez or Byrne, I really didn't pick it up. Type of thing.
I think a lot of people probably kind of float that same way.
Yeah,
especially when
right.
you're younger.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I had my buddy is friends with John and my buddy Chris Ryle, and we had lunch and dinner together um,
Nice.
last month, and I
Oh wow.
tell you, like I know a lot of cool people in comics, and I don't geek out really ever, right? But I didn't
Sure.
geek out for this one, but it was kind of like it was different. It was very surreal, like that, sitting at the table with Brian, we're joking, and he was talking about like how much he owes to Kirby and stuff like that, right? You
Sure.
know, and it's like you and I appreciate Kirby, I really do, but John's on just such a different level, and I was like, you don't understand, John. Like, on our pantheon of artists, like you're there, like you're on that list, like you're up there with Kirby for us.
Right.
Like you don't get it. Like it's like you're up there with Walt Simonson, George Perez. Like you're up there with the greats. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. He
Absolutely.
was super, super, super awesome guy, super genuine. Yeah, just awesome. Just a really, really kind of cool day. You
Well,
know.
since we're talking about the progenitor or the step parent of Hellboy, there, did you guys talk about the Mignolaverse at all when you spoke
Yeah,
to Mr. Byrne?
briefly, yeah, yeah. Not too awful much. It's
Sure.
like just kind of really like when you're it's so hard to kind of like because really like during the early '80s, John was the guy you handed books off to that were like no one read. Like if you had a
Right.
book that was if Marvel had a book that was in the dumps and they wanted to like completely revolutionize, like revitalize it, make it hot again, they gave it to John, and John did it, and John took books that no one cared about and made them front and center awesome books. So really, like when you're kind of just sitting talking, that's where the kind of conversation just kind of gravitates to. Kind of grabs like, oh, like that's right, you did that too.
Right.
It's like I was talking like to Jim Shooter. Like if you ever get a chance to talk to Jim Shooter, the guy is just an amazing guy, and he is so full of late '70s, early '80s Marvel tales. It's just like, oh my god, like bullpen stories. It's just nuts. You know, and it's like, just crazy, just kind of crazy. But yeah, that was
Shooter
that
was
was
he was the editor for Marvel from what, like 1980 something up to 90 when they got bought out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't even think he lasted that long. It was like late '70s, or maybe '80. He was there for the my core early '80s years. He was responsible for Secret Wars. Now I know everyone dogged
Right.
Secret Wars, for kind of lackluster art. Even though I thought Mike Zeck killed it on that book, and
Yeah,
in
I
the
liked it.
story and the story being kind of crap, and John wasn't a fan of it, like he wasn't a fan at the time because he felt like that it was like pulling sales from other titles, like it really wasn't increasing sales because it was like pulling sales from other titles, and I'm
Right.
sure he's 100% right, you know, and but as a tool that to make kids read comics, it worked, right? Because
Right.
it did exactly what it was intended to. It gave you a story that had all these superheroes that you knew about all in one book. And then to get the complete story, you had to read all these offshoots. So you had to read books that I never read before to get the whole story. But then it worked. Like all of a sudden, now I'm buying these other books because that little tendril into that story was enough to kind of hook me on like, oh, these characters are great and I love the interaction. I never would have read Power Man and Iron Fist as a kid, but after
Sure.
Secret Wars 2, and it's like, oh, you need this issue to get the full story. You're buying it, and it's like it's working. So I'm buying all these titles that I never would have before because of that book. So as a mechanism, as a miniseries mechanism, to kind of sell more books. It worked. It worked on me,
Yeah.
So,
I
and
I
I'm
think it
working, and I'm
worked well enough that they have a movie franchise that's effectively built off that model, right?
right, right. That's exactly it, So it worked. It worked, So, and I get like Jim. is like, even talking to Jim, he's like, yeah, I was kind of like the guy who got stuff done. Like I was
Right.
the hardest guy who had to just go in there and make decisions and get stuff done, and I wasn't too popular for it. And I get it, I get that role, But it's like, but what fruit has it yielded? It's like, geez, I'm chrome.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it
You can
worked
either
on me.
focus on the bad parts or the good parts, right?
Yeah, right. It worked on me, and I wouldn't be working in comics if it wasn't for the kind of that. If it wasn't for
Well,
that,
hey, thanks to Jim Shooter and John Byrne
Yeah,
and everybody else that built
that's
the staircase
that's
over here.
right. That's right. It's like, it's just so funny. Like, here's John kind of helping Mike along a little bit, and Mike didn't need much to hit the ground running. But you
Right.
need that little bit. That little bit, and then it's like, and Mike's off, and Mike is now, Mike's a legend, right? Mike's a living legend. He really is, and Mike is awesome, and Mike is great, and that's it. That is it. Mike is great to work with. Mike is an awesome person, and I don't think he kind of like gets how impactful he is, to this medium. I mean, he really is. I mean, when he enters Hall 8 at Comic Con, and to a standing ovation, I mean, come on,
Right.
the guy's pretty incredible.
Well, I did build a website dedicated to him, so I tend to agree with you in all of those regards. So
Yeah, right. His art's so distinctive. I love it. I love like his line choice. I love his shadow choice. Trust me, like when like Mike and I had a conversation years ago, like when I first started doing the prop replicas,
sure.
from the different Hellboy stories and b.p.r.d. stories. He was like, now he's like, I don't want these to look too Flintstone-y, he said. And he was like, I've seen other people try to interpret my art, and that's what it looks like. I'm like, Mike, I get it. Like, I know, because like, I know Mike's style, right? Like, everyone knows Mike's style, but like when they look at, something that Mike has drawn, what I'm trying to create is that thing he's looking at while he's drawing it. Right,
Right.
that's what I'm trying to create, So I have to like make this thing a real tangible item, but I also have to kind of make it enough like Mike's art, but not like too much like Mike's work. It needs to look like it exists in this world, right? Not.
Reference grade, right?
Yeah, right. That's kind of it, So that's the kind of line you have to kind of play, and then follow. And that's great. I love doing that stuff. And that's kind of what we do. We do, regardless of the artist that we work on. We're about hitting artist lines. It's not like we're, like Funko, where it's like everyone has round eyes and the big bulbous head type of
Yeah.
thing. It's like we're not trying to, or Lego even, where we're trying to kind of like push someone's
Homogenize.
art. Yeah, exactly. Push everyone's art through my personal filter, and
Right.
this is my version. No, that's we don't. I don't get off on that. No one wants my version. They want well, I guess they do. My version just happens to be as close to the artist's version as I can get it.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah,
So
that's kind of.
Mike is a fan of your work. Then he gave you the seal.
He gave me the seal.
All
It
right.
was funny. It was so funny. It was years and years ago, and we were at Comic Con, and we're both friends with Scott Dumbier over at IDW, and Scott is just an amazing guy. And it's so funny. Like, Scott Dumbier is like the Kevin Bacon of comics, right? So everyone knows Scott. Yeah, like, no joke. Everyone knows him and everyone loves him. He's just amazing. And he used to be an art dealer. That's before he started getting into comics. He used to be
Oh
an
wow.
art dealer. Yeah, and he used to, be Burns' art dealer, I believe, years ago.
Sure.
But yeah, so I was getting ready to do a signing at the IDW booth with Joe and Gabe for Lock and Key, and then Mike was there talking with Scott, and I came up, and I was just getting ready to take a seat, and then and um, Scott introduced us, and I was like, what I'd love to do was kind of do this, and then he's like, I love that idea. Let's work something. Let's make something happen.
Nice.
So yeah, we did, and then it wasn't a couple months. had kind of put something together. Like, this is kind of how I want to approach this line. You know, I kind of want to make it like a real thing, kind of like an experience, if you will. And
Sure.
yeah, and he loved it, and he loved the idea, and he loved the, you know, and he digs what we do. And I always, we run everything by Mike anyway, so it's like
Right.
everything from the box text to the, all that stuff, because it's like, like I have my own Hellboy Bible, right, that I've created, regardless of, like all the other stuff that's out there. Like this, this is kind of what comes first, and this what came second. Like this whole timeline, and then like all the different adventures. I got to keep track of all that stuff if I'm going to do this.
Sure.
Right? You got to make sure that the Whittier medallion, has an earlier number than, say Mahomes Bell, type of thing.
Oh,
So
okay. I never thought about that.
yeah, right. So you just got to kind of keep all that stuff, kind of in check, or Bishop Zarini's button, was one of the first artifacts, type of thing. But yeah, just first artifacts collected, But yeah, but that's just all stuff. That's all the behind the scenes stuff. That's the stuff I dig. I kind of like, all right, let's map this out. How this kind of play out? When was this gathered? Who gathered it? Who's taking it out? Even like we have a Roger piece coming up, and it's a piece from Almost Colossus, and but it's I don't want to get too much into it, but the person who checks it out of the archive is Roger every time.
Okay.
Just because Roger is always kind of yearning for that relationship with his father, someone who he never knew,
Sure.
type of deal. So he's like, and he, how Roger like would always kind of collect these things, like, from different adventures, he would always collect these, and like they found him in his room after he perished and stuff, so it's kind of like
hanging from the ceiling collection, right?
yeah, just like, so it's stuff like that where it's like, just that's just kind of part of the character. That's kind of who he is,
Sure.
So yeah, so just it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. One of these days I'll build Roger himself. That's on my plate. I've always wanted it, man.
A full-size Roger, a real?
Yeah, full-size Roger. If you're gonna do it, just do it.
Are you gonna sell it, or are you gonna make it for yourself?
No, I'm probably gonna make it for myself.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it's like I have a handful of pieces that I've done, just for myself, because like no one else is gonna want this. Yeah, it's not so much Hellboy stuff. Like I have a, Silver Surfer surfboard, that type of thing. This big.
Size?
Oh yeah, it's over 8 feet long. But
made with real silver.
No, it's good. I actually, you wouldn't even believe the price of this. It's a chrome paint treatment by Alsa Corp, and it's so colossally expensive. Like you wouldn't even believe, like the price per quart on this stuff. It is foolish, But no, I have it already, and so it's like I already have the paint. It's just a matter of like, all right, I got to slap this stuff down. But there's so many other things to do first.
You might have to send us a picture of that surfboard. That's pretty amazing.
I know. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff like that. I have a, before Golden Age Flash, was a thing on TV. I have a partially done helmet in the shop. Like that was kind of dabbling with on the free time. Of course,
Cool.
once you start doing this all the time, your free time evaporates.
Sure.
So. But yeah, that's kind of what it is, So,
let's rewind a little bit to the start of your Hellboy involvement with
the
Skelton crew. Then, so the first piece on the website is the elf shot arrowhead type.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first pieces we did was the elf shot, Bishop Sereni's button, and Bogrush's nail. I think we led with either two of those. I think we led with Bishop Sereni's silver button and Bogrush's nail, and and then we've kind of jockeyed, like we did some stuff in pairs, and then we started doing single releases. It's just because some stuff, because we produce everything here, like we're we do metal really well, and I hate to in anyone's horn, especially my own. Not anyone's, but I hate to toot my own horn. But it's like metal's kind of difficult. Metal takes a bit of handwork and finesse, that you just can't call up, some manufacturer in China and say, "Oh, okay, send me 500 or 1,000 of these." Yeah,
Right.
they'll send you 1,000, all right, but you're gonna reject 498 of them, and you're gonna be like, "Why on earth did I do this?" No, yeah, we handwork everything. We cast everything here. We handwork everything here. You know, so. So,
When
but
did you
then, but
start
that,
doing the Hellboy stuff? When was your first release for
oh
Hellboy?
my word, I don't 2012 maybe,
Okay.
2012, something like that, something
So
around
you're
there
right around your
probably.
fifth anniversary of the Mignola work.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot
Hey,
of fun. We've
congratulations.
had a lot. Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Yeah, we've done we've done a bunch of stuff, and we got a bunch of stuff more planned. And I'm really super psyched about the new film. I mean, obviously, I'm excited to see Hellboy live action again, but I'm just excited that it's gonna bring more people to Mignola's stuff. You
Sure.
know, it's like just kind of expose them to the genius of his work. You know, and it's like, all right, that's kind of it. So it's like if that, that, hey, if that trickles down to me in any little bit, then hey, that doesn't hurt my feelings.
Hey, can't
But
it has to get you some people. I know based on Facebook and everything that I've seen, the movies do seem to be most people's entry points to the Hellboy comics and then the eventual whole Mignolaverse.
yeah, well,
So
hey, if that's what it takes,
yeah,
then great. Then that's awesome. Then that's awesome. If people kind of, well, I think it's got everything everyone likes. That it's got everything that made Indiana Jones, amazing. It's got the paranormal. It's got Nazis. It's got everything that like people can kind of like. Yeah, this is the makings of a good story.
sure.
So
Have you done
yeah,
any
right.
Hellboy movie replicas?
No, I don't. I
Okay.
just kind of steer clear of that stuff. Um, and I say that kind of because the fun's not there for me, and it's the fun is taking Mike's art or anyone's art, whether it's Gabe's art or anything from Gabriel Rodriguez from Lock and Key,
Sure.
like making his stuff, making his 2D art come turn into 3D,
Hmm.
filling in the gaps, right? That, in the same way with Mike's stuff, filling in those gaps. Here's Mike's 2D drawing. Like, oh, okay, this is how this thing looks in 3D. This is what Mike's shadows imply. They
Right.
imply that this is how this thing is rounded on this corner or whatever. You know, and but yeah, that's where the fun comes for me. That's where the charge comes for me is taking this 2D object and making it 3D, and it's like. So something that already exists in 3D, like rebuilding a lightsaber or something like that. I don't know. Some people really enjoy that, and I get it. Who doesn't want some hand turned, aluminum lightsaber? But
Sure. Sure.
it's you're really kind of just working off screenshots, and that just doesn't seem fun to me. You know,
So
type
you're
of
more
thing.
interested in the artistic chase then.
Yeah, right. I guess that's what it is. It's like I just want to. I think it's fun. I think that journey is fun. So like to take something from 2D to 3D. Sometimes, and the funny thing is like when I was a kid, like I've always seen things like whether it was a comic book or whatever. So I've always seen stuff like I could always pull stuff out and kind of like in my mind like rotate like, oh, that's how this thing is shaped, type of thing. And I for the longest time I thought that's how everyone was wired, right? Like everyone does this, right? So it's
Sure.
like. Yeah, and then you come to realize that no, like not everyone is wired like I am, so they don't see things the way I see things, you know. So and that's really kind of like that's when you kind of gravitate like okay, like that's why sculpting is a thing, because for me anyway, that's why I gravitated to a sculpting, because that's how I saw things. I saw things in 3 dimension, so. But yeah, so I kind of like that. I like that process. And it's really not a process, because for me it's just automatic. But and it's automatic for a lot of a lot of the great sculptors that we work with. They just kind of, they're Hellboy fans, and they see things the way I see things.
Sure.
Or they see things the same way. Maybe not
Right.
exactly the way I do, but they have that same kind of 3 dimensional inner eye, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of people are real happy about that inner eye of yours. I know your stuff is very popular in the community right now.
Ah, thanks, man. Thanks. We try. Well, I think part of it is like, I don't ever I don't like to compromise. Right? I'm not like, like everyone says, oh, marriage is about compromise. Like, yeah, when's compromise? Like, to me, like, I don't compromise isn't a good term. Like, our security has been compromised. Like, compromise isn't
Right,
a
right.
positive term, right?
Sure.
So I'm just not very good on compromise. So I always approach a piece like, this is what I need to do to get this done. Right? This is what this piece needs. Right? I don't ever work backwards. I don't like, well, I think a customer would be comfortable paying this price point, and then work backwards. So it's like, okay, well, that means I can have no more than this wrapped up per unit to make that happen. And I say that because that's a lot of times how collectibles are treated, right? They work backwards from this price point that they think a customer is going to be happy with. I don't do it that way. I build the thing, and I build it out of the materials that it should be built out of, and where that falls and where that number lies is just where it is. So I always put the piece first, and
Okay.
where the number comes, the number just is, and that's just what it is. We did a run of Troll Witches spoons, a
Okay.
while back, and so I was like, all right, so how am I gonna, And of course, I tell you right now, if anyone else had done these, right, they would have made one, sculpted one, cast it, you know, and then give it some stain treatment, right? That's
Right, right.
exactly that's how it. Yeah. Well, we hand carved every single one of them out of a solid block of cherry. Like
Wow.
that's what. Yeah. Right. So that's what we did. You know. So,
How long did it take to make one spoon?
oh my word, it was ours, right? That
Yeah.
was it. I mean, and it was a heavy price point, but that's just, we only did 50 of them, and they sold out within less than a day.
Sure.
And they were pricey, but it was just like, this is what it is. Like, this is, and there was no, we didn't splice any wood together. Like, we need to get solid chunks of cherry for that piece, for every piece, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it was a
I
bear.
know I've
It was.
seen a lot of people lamenting that they missed out on the little fire frogs.
Oh yeah, yeah, the Phadrian frog. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
was
one.
I tell you, that piece was a bear. That was a real bear. It was
Really?
yeah, to get resin to look like jade is really tough. It's really
Sure.
tough. Yeah, and if you have any, like, normally with resin, with casting any resin, like, say you're doing a statue or whatever, you're gonna get some. There's gonna be some porosity, right? So there's gonna be some bubbles. No matter, you can get some great casts, but you're also going to have, a couple of air bubbles here and there.
Sure.
That's great. No big deal. It's going to be painted anyway. You putty it, you sand it, and you paint the thing, right? And
Hmm.
that's what it is, because it's a painted statue. When you're dealing with, a translucent resin like this, if you had a casting defect, the whole piece was garbage,
Right.
right? And you can't reuse it. It's not like it's, metal. Like, oh, I'll just throw it back in the pot and melt it down.
Sure.
No, no, there's no way. And you can't even do that too many times with metal. You do that a couple times, you're gonna have porosity issues on your own of
Right.
that. But yeah, you can't do it. So, right, if you had any problems with the cast, that piece was done. Like, that, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
So oh yeah, our rejection rate on that piece was so high. It was
I can
crazy high.
imagine. Yeah. Sure.
It was pretty horrible. So yeah, so we ended up capping the run. It was like we got what we needed to fill orders, and we called it. It was like, all right, this is, really, I'm like, I'm throwing away 2 frogs for everyone we get. Type of. Yeah, it wasn't that high, but it was high. It was really, really high. So I was like, this is, but hey, that's how it goes. That's just.
Right,
That's just what it is, and there's so many factors when it has resin, especially resin like that. Humidity plays a factor. There's a ton of factors. The heat, humidity, all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
So it's just a matter of, having the stars line up perfectly, having the ratios be right. Sometimes it's it's a different batch of catalyst. There's all kinds of variables. That's what even metal pieces. There's a ton of different variables. It's like
Sure.
to kind of make a piece look good. To give it the right finish. I mean, I've done this long enough where I know what needs to happen. I know how it should be sculpted to kind of make the end result look cool.
Sure. So, is there any chance of these, the spoon, the frog, any of the other discontinued Hellboy b.p.r.d stuff coming back?
Well, the spoon, no, the spoon's done.
Okay.
The spoon we did a run of, and that's no, we're not doing any more spoons. No. As far as the frog though, I called the run early, so in theory, right? If I was to kind of like, all right, I'm gonna revisit this, and we still have room on the tail end of the run if I can work out the bugs so the rejection rate isn't as high as it was.
Sure.
But and it's not something I've completely ruled out. It's just a matter of I got to make it work, and it can't be this arduous uphill fight. The fight of the jade, the summer of the jade frog. I can't go through that again.
Well, having that hope is going to make some people very happy, even they may be waiting a few years to hear about it, eh?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? It's a great looking piece. It really is. It's really cool. I mean, the swirl is hand painted on.
Sure.
It's like we try to do all these little steps to make it like really authentic. It's like, that's kind of the thing. Like you can cast resin, green resin, a bunch of different ways, but there's only a couple of ways to make it look like jade and make it kind of look like jade. So yeah, there's just a, and like I said, the hand, because we could have like I could have scribed that swirl on his back, so every time, or water slip decaled it, so every swirl was the same, but it's like when you see them when they're being painted in the book, when on guys' art, it's like everyone's a little bit different, so it's like I just kind of wanted that kind of that feel to it. Yeah, I try to want to make. I like the packaging. I like everything. I want to keep everything kind of, cool and as authentic as possible.
So let's wrap up with some fan questions here. I solicited questions on our groups on many Mignolaverse related Facebook groups.
Sure.
And I got a couple of questions that I think should be pretty strong for you here. So easy question: what's your favorite piece you've ever done? Well, maybe it's not an easy question, but hopefully it's an easy question.
Yeah, I don't know. Favorite piece I've ever done. I'll tell you this, and not too many people have seen it. I threw a picture up on Twitter. I built the Samaritan, for myself. And I kind of dig it. And I made some changes from this isn't like an exact, like this is Mike's art, right, type of thing. This is me. This is my kind of version, if you will. Like I did subtle things like, the barrel release on a regular revolver is on the left hand side. Right, because that's normally people are right-handed, but there's Hellboy isn't, right? So Hellboy's, can't shoot it with his right hand. So I swapped that over to the other side, little stuff like that I kind of did for myself that just made sense, right?
Sure.
And I understand that, that gun was gifted, type of thing.
Right.
So, but like I made these little kind of tweaks, like this would make sense for Hellboy's use, type of thing, and it's like, and the Samaritan to me was never like a revolver. It's always been a break barrel, like a flare gun, right? It's a
Right.
break barrel gun. You
Yeah,
got one
totally.
load, that's it. Yeah, that's a cannon. It really is. I mean, the thing would shatter your wrist if
Yeah.
you're squeezed off around, But I've always dug that piece. There's a couple pieces for lock and key. The shadow key, I really dug. Because you got to remember, when I first started doing this, like the digital sculpting was really in its infancy, So like I'm sculpting things, I'm building stuff, how a jeweler would build stuff, So like a lot of those early keys were built just like a piece of jewelry would be,
Sure.
Versus, here's some CAD drawing where you don't have to kind of really worry about how things are gonna, go together. Like,
Mm.
okay, this is a welded joint. I got a weld here, type of thing. Versus, or like actually this piece is going to be a softer metal, so I can't use that. I have to solder this piece, type of thing. Like all that stuff you got to think about when you got to traditionally build stuff. You don't have to think about in a program like ZBrush, but and I really like
Do
the
you
bog
also
rushes.
do digital sculpting, or?
We do, we did. I just did. I just sculpted a piece for the for the Artifact Archive, a couple weeks back. But the majority of our stuff is digitally sculpted. I try to keep the mic projects. We work with a lot of different sculptors that are huge mic fans, and a couple of them don't digitally sculpt. Like they're great traditional sculptors, but they haven't taken the jump to digital. Um,
Okay.
but I know they love the property just like I do. So and I can say, okay, here's how big I need this thing, to account for shrinkage and everything else from metal shrinkage and all that stuff,
Sure.
and they're gonna hit it out of the park. So that's one of the benefits of digital sculpting is that you can tweaks are very easy, and especially if you have to size something up or down, like, oh, I need that 10% bigger, then that's just a
Right.
couple clicks, versus you got to resculpt this from scratch,
Yeah.
So any figural stuff that we do is digitally sculpted, you know,
Okay.
so yeah, so and that's and we've done that for a number of years now. You really can't not in this day and age, you
Yeah.
know. So
So you were saying the bog rouge nail.
yeah, I like I just that was one of those pieces where I knew, and then that was traditionally sculpted too, but that was just it's just like it's just such a simple piece, but
Mm.
you can mess it up a bunch of ways, right? So there was just
Sure.
that's the thing. Like when you're dealing with, we'll say like Terry Moore's art, right? So you're looking at Terry Moore, like Terry Moore. I love how Terry Moore draws women, you know, and I just love his line choice, his line selection. But if you notice with Terry's art, he doesn't use a lot of lines, right? So for a sculptor, that's really hard. It's hard to kind of like fill in the void. Like I need to hit because these lines imply shadow, right? So that's really kind of what it is, right? So I need to like what form is going to give me this shadow from this angle, type of thing. And how can I, when you have these slight lines, and Mike's heart's kind of like that too sometimes, right? So Mike's implying what this shape is with these heavy shadows, and like okay, I got to kind of get this right, type of thing. And it's easy to kind of mess it up, I guess. And I
Sure.
just hope I don't mess it up. I mean,
Well,
that's kind of what it is. It's like I hope I don't mess it up. I don't, but
you got
if
a pretty
I run.
good hit miss ratio going so far. It looks like.
Thanks, man. Thank you. But yeah, but part of it, I have one rule. I got one rule for the studio. If I'm not a fan, I'm not your guy, right?
Sure.
That's the thing, And it's like, and there's so many good books out there right now. There's so many good indie books, you know and there's a lot of books that I really 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 dig and I really like, and other books don't resonate with me like they would resonate with someone else,
Sure.
so if I get approached to a book, that just doesn't resonate with me, I'm not saying I wouldn't try to help someone out, but I'd rather kind of work on the stuff that just speaks to me, like Mike's
Yeah,
stuff
makes sense.
does.
Sure.
You know,
All right.
I
So
you just do better work.
right. Well, yeah. If it's this is your business, right? You did this so that you could enjoy your job. So I guess you have to enjoy what you're making.
Yeah, and I didn't, and I'm not vague about things. I didn't call this like Pleasant Hill Studios. Like my name, my name goes on every piece, right? So if it
Sure.
sucks, it's all on me, right?
Right.
If I made a piece that's a dog, or then it's on me, no one else. It's like, I'm the head of it. So if there was a sculpt that didn't look quite right, or if there was a process that didn't pan out how we thought it would, I mean, I wouldn't let it go. I'd scrap it. But you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But if something slipped through the cracks, and it's on me, it's on no one else, so that's it.
Sure. Okay. Second fan question. What was the most difficult thing to make? And we
Whew.
we probably better stick to the for sale pieces because I'm sure the Samaritan and the surfboard are much
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
difficult to
yeah.
make than the nail.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'm gonna say, just for production purposes, the frog.
Okay.
The frog was an uphill battle. It really was,
Sure.
and it wasn't because the sculpt was super complex, or anything like that. It really wasn't. The sculpt was very kind of chunky and very simple sculpt, very much like guys art. But it was just the process. It was just the
Sure.
process, and kind of dealing with everything that goes into getting a good cast piece, and not being able to, like, okay, here's the ones that need repair, like that. Yeah, that pile is trash.
Sure.
I mean, there's no repairing,
All
type of
right.
deal.
Next question is so you said Mike is a final approval on everything. Does he check the item tags for the b.p.r.d archive? Does he
Oh yeah,
fact
yeah, he
check that
does.
stuff for you?
Oh yeah, of course he does.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite parts, because I write all that stuff up myself, right?
Sure.
So like I go through and I'm like, all right, here's kind of where it is, and here's how I think, and I send it to Mike, and Mike's like, yeah, change it to this, 'cause I think this would be funnier. I'm like, you're right. you know. So yeah, Mike has final say on everything, So, but oh yeah, so yeah, I show him everything, But yeah.
Good. I think people probably really really appreciate that. You know.
Well, yeah, it's so funny. Like even on some stuff, because Mike is so prolific, right? He's created a universe out of nothing, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
He's
really,
everywhere.
when you think about him, he took like this one idea, this one sketch, and then turned it into this entire universe of characters
Right.
that are in that it's just crazy, right? I mean, so here's a guy who has like all these moving parts, and I'm asking him a question about like some goat artifact, and he's like, I'm not really sure. He's like, well, in this and this, he's like, I'm gonna have to trust John on this one. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna lead you wrong. I'm not gonna lead you astray, But it's like just so funny. But yeah, no, he's written and created so much. I mean, the guy is amazing. Hats off to the Mikes of the world, man. It's like, you got these universe builders that are just that you're in just awe of, like whether it's Mike or even J.K. Rowling. It's like,
Sure.
these people who've created these universes that you get to kind of. I'm lucky enough I get to play in, right?
Right. You get to build it.
Yeah.
You're an architect in that universe right now.
I am a little tiny bit, So it's yeah, it's pretty fun. It's a lot of fun, I
So let's
mean,
go
and it's
one
an
last
honor.
question. Oh, sorry. Say that again because I think that was kind of important.
Oh yeah, no, and it's an honor. It really is. It's an honor to work off Mike's stuff. He's a true gentleman, and he is a wonder. He is a marvel of our times.
Yeah, no questions there. Okay, so let's go. Final question here from Brian, who is writing for Mignolaverse right now.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a kind of two-part here. What first attracted you to the Mignolaverse, and who's your favorite character or maybe group element, something from the Mignolaverse?
Okay. Let's see. So obviously Hellboy. Hellboy. When you first see Hellboy, in the early '90s, for me, and it's like, all right, this guy is kind of cool. Like this guy is awesome. So and you kind of want to know more. You kind of want to know more um about who is this, right? So, but my favorite character has got to be Daryl the Wendigo. Yeah,
Okay.
in no joke. I mean, I live in the wilds of Maine, man. I use when
Sure.
I my first pitch letter to Mike about this whole thing. I mentioned just having to fight a Wendigo in the backwoods. Yeah. So I'm no stranger. I'm no stranger to this world, But it is. I just love the fact that we have Daryl the Wendigo. I mean, come on, that's great, right?
Sure.
you know, it's like part of me is like, I wish there was some Wendigo artifact. I wish there was some talisman. There was something, that I can make.
No
you
doubt.
know but no, I love Roger. I really love Roger a lot. um
Yeah.
I love the innocence of Roger. I love everything about him. I really do. I love you kind of see him grow. You kind of see him kind of like, go from this Frankenstein-esque monster to kind of this, beloved team member, you know,
Right.
and then they have the choice to come back, and he's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's like,
Totally.
yeah, come on. I mean, yeah, Roger's always been one of those guys. It was so funny. They who was it? Mezco did an action figure of him a few years back,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I never got it at the time. I never picked it up. It was just one of those things where it's like you got 1,000 things going on, and then
Sure.
before you know it, it's like on eBay, it's like $60 or something like that. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah, I can't afford to throw $60 at a Roger action figure right now. So Mike had some, just because he had some comps, and he sent me one, and he signed it, and
Nice.
it was like I have it on my bookshelf right now, and it's like like, and he signed it. It's like part of me is like, I gotta get another one so I can open it.
Right. Yeah. You got to
you know?
put that thing in a glass case.
Yeah, I know, right? But I just want Roger. I want to open it. I want to lift that little flap on his chest, the little port. Yeah, no, I love Roger a lot. I think Roger to me is just kind of one of those awesome creations. Like I said, I've always wanted to build my own. I've always want to. That's one of my favorite scenes in the first Hellboy movie. When they're walking down the hall and you see Roger in the case.
The
You
little
know,
keys. Yeah.
yeah, I love it. It's like I love that stuff.
No doubt.
That was kind of like me growing up, and like, I was all about the live action Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk, or even the Captain America movies where he's on the motorcycle and he had the clear
Yeah.
shield. Like that stuff was so awful, but it was
Yeah.
so good. It kind of brought this stuff to me into, it was real. It was like, this is real. It wasn't, I didn't like, oh, this is real, but it's like, oh, this is how this would look. Like, this is how spandex really looks like when it's on somebody.
Sure.
Not like you can't see every abdominal and everything. Like, what fabric is this?
Yeah. The body paint costumes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's like that's why, like Alex Ross's stuff. I love just kind of, how he really, it's almost like, photorealism. And then I know he works off a lot
Yeah.
of photographs anyway.
That
You
guy's a
know,
wizard. Alex Ross is clearly not born of this earth.
Yeah, right, man. It's like it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah. And I met Alex a couple different times, and the wife actually saw him, like do like paint once, and
Okay.
he painted this. It was, I'm gonna say it was Chicago Comic Con, and I'm gonna say early '90s or something, early 2000s. I can't. No, it was early 2000s,
Right.
and or maybe 2000 or around there. But he did a Spider-Man painting. He had a guy in costume sitting on a stool, and he had his easel out, and he just whipped out this painting of Spider-Man that was like glorious. you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, just the guy knows his craft, you know. But he knows what he's looking at, right? He knows the shapes, he knows what the light and the shadows imply, and he's just kind of putting that down, you know. He's honed his craft. But yeah, I love Alex stuff, right? So you know, like when you see, you know, like oh his take on, you know, Thor or whatever, you know, it's like oh that's kind of cool. That's how I like how he draws or how he paints, like just the leather of his costume, you know, or those metal
Sure.
plates on his chest, you know,
Right.
that type of stuff, you know, or even even like you know, there's stuff that like never made sense to me, like Wonder Woman's belt. Like how is like she would impale herself every time she bent over. Like that belt doesn't even make you know, like that belt doesn't even make any sense. You
Good point.
but
I never thought about that.
yeah. Well, she wouldn't impale. So she obviously the metal would just ripple under, you know, because she's impervious. But you know what I'm
Sure.
saying. But there's,
Right.
there's
Yeah,
all
she'd
this
break the
stuff
belt free.
that never made sense to me. Like this doesn't make any sense, you know, just logistically. Like how does this even work? You know, there's so I'll tell you a story. So um I first met Joe years ago. I'm gonna say pushing 10 years ago, and when he was first started Lock and Key, and
Okay, Joe Hill.
yeah, Joe Hill,
Okay.
and he had just started the first few books. So the issue one was out, and he had some the first 6 issues around, I guess. So he had the first hardcover of Lock and Key, and and so it was he had them before he had some early releases for himself. So they were giving them out, we were giving away to charity, and he had a couple with him, and he asked me to build a ghost key for Christmas gifts for everyone at IDW, for people involved in the book. So I did, and so I get the book home anyway. So I go in the shop, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm mapping out like this materials I'm going to use, and this I'm going to build this thing, and and so the teeth to the key bisect the stop on Gabe's art. You know, bisect the stop of the key, and it really can't for a skeleton key because the stop is what hits the escutcheon plate, and then the key rotates from there.
Okay.
So I came in from the shop, and I said to I said to the wife, I'm like, this key can't even work, and she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the teeth bisect the stop. I go, it can't turn. It would hit the escutcheon plate. She's like, why do you always do this? She's like, what? She's like, just build it. You know, she's like, I'm like, but it can't. She's like, it never has to work. Just build it.
Right.
You know, and it's just like, oh, you're right. You know, I got to kind of lose this, you know, like this, you know, type of thing. You know, especially for a guy who works in the make believe, you know, type of
Yeah,
thing.
you are kind of splitting hairs about a magical key at that
I
point.
know, right? You know, so she's like, it'll never have to work anyway. And of course, you know, flash forward, flash forward 4 months, and I'm having to build a custom lock to make that key
Oh
work.
no.
Yeah, yeah. We built the ghost door and that's in Joe's office, and that key
Oh wow.
works. That key
The
works in the lock.
whole door, the full the
The whole thing.
really.
Actually, yeah, the whole thing. The whole thing, the whole door, all the carved panels, all the carved woodwork, all of it. Yep. I'll
There's
say
gonna be a museum to your work in the future. If you,
it'll be in Hill House. I tell you, I've done several
yeah.
pieces in that house. I'm pretty proud of.
So, what better place could you have?
Yeah, right on. Excuse me,
Well, I look
but
forward to the exhibit in your honor someday. And
yeah, well, no, who knows? Well, it'll be in honor of all the great people I get to work with. That's for sure. You know, and hats off to, like, you know, everyone from, you know, Tony Cipriano to Tim Arp to Jimmy McFarland to anyone who's ever, you know, Arlen Pelletier to, you know, Paul Harding, you know, all these guys who, you know, Troy McDivitt, all these guys who've worked with us over the years making cool stuff, or who are just as big of fans of not only Mike's, of all the stuff we work with. You know, hats off to all those guys, you know, for kind of being willing and able to take on some of the cool stuff we work on.
sure, where would we be without him?
Yeah, right. You know, yeah, that those those are my guys. Those are the guys that make the stuff that we all love, right? And myself included. But I'm more kind of pulling the strings these days.
Well, it's good to be in control at least. So let's do one very very last thing here. Do you have any upcoming Mignolaverse products you'd like to tease, and or maybe things that are already announced you'd like to mention?
Sure, yeah. We do have a couple. We do have a couple new artifacts coming up probably next couple of months. Um, I can't really kind of speak about them too much. I want it to be a surprise,
Sure.
but Dave Stewart will be signing one of them. That's kind
Oh,
of cool because, oh yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who, I mean, when you look at the amount of books that guy has colored, it is,
yeah.
oh my God, right? I mean,
I mean,
the
even
fact
just with Mr. Mignola, he's on what
he's on
seventy
everything.
percent of them. Yeah.
Yeah, no joke, right? So I mean, the fact that Dave even has time to sign anything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
He's gonna have to sign it in colors because doesn't have time to switch hands.
I know, right? The guy's amazing. The guy's amazing. I really, it's so funny. Like, I love Mike's black and whites, but it's like when you see Dave's colors on top, it's just like even the stuff they did with the Goon, it's just like gee, these subtle colors. Oh, just such beautiful stuff. But Dave's great. So, but Dave will be signing one of the pieces. Um,
Okay.
we got a new Abe and Hellboy pin set that we
Okay.
just released.
Yeah, I'm looking at that
And
on the website now.
yeah, and that's going pretty good. Um, and we have some other kind of cool stuff we got in the works. Um, but yeah, like people are really, really, really digging the pins. And I also I love it when people are like, hey, how about this piece or this artifact or this whatever. I love hearing from people. I mean, thank you, man, for kind of, like just greasing any wheels, like just kind of free people, just yelling at me, hey, you know what I want this, and the chances are like I want it too, or I've already started it,
Right.
or I've already started sketches like the Whittier medallion, like
Okay.
I did sketches of the Whittier medallion years ago. Like okay, and I got to fill in these missing runes, and Mike and I have already talked about the runes that are covered up by the finger, type of thing.
Oh,
So it's like, yeah, right. So there's just but I love kind of hearing all the stuff. I like the people like, I want this, I want that. I'll tell you one piece I do want to build, and I want to build. This is from the third wish, and I don't know. I don't know how it's if I can make it producible, but I want to build the uh, the stone jars, that the Bog Roosh lords over, the ones with
okay.
the souls of dead spirits in. So, yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to build one of those. I've wanted to build one of those for a long time, So I think that'll be a me piece. Me just breaking out
Oh,
like 23 pounds of clay and making that thing
yeah.
happen.
You don't want to be making people sad, saying it's only going to be for you.
Well, I don't know, but I gotta figure it out. I gotta make it a thing first. Once
Sure.
it's a thing, and once I'm in that process, then I can think about how it's going to be reproducible, type of thing. But that's part of that process, But it's part
Okay.
of that whole thing, It's like I say, like there's a lot of guys out there who can sculpt. A lot of people, a lot of men and women out there who can sculpt amazingly, but can they sculpt for production? Right,
Right. Right.
that's the trick, right? So, like, I can swing a dead cat and hit someone who's a great sculptor, probably, easily better than me, But can they sculpt? Can they sculpt? Do they know the process and do they have the foresight to sculpt this so it's going to be producible, right?
Sure.
That's the trick, But so that's it,
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got a bunch of cool pieces, but the pins are doing really really well. We have a new leather dice bag, a new b.p.r.d. leather dice bag that people have really been
Perfect for
digging.
the upcoming board game.
Yeah, I guess that was amazing. That whole Kickstarter, like what they hit $1 million in like in a handful of days,
I
you
want to
know.
say it was 1.5 million pounds actually.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
just a tribute? That just screams how influential Mike is. And yeah, board games are hot, but I mean, you're not gonna raise that kind of money with a board game of some other, lesser
yeah,
known
right,
character. I mean, I
right,
don't I don't want to dog on any character, but but this is a tribute to Mike. This is a tribute to like his stuff. This is him.
sure, totally,
And those pieces looked really cool. I kind of followed it a little bit, like the whole campaign. I was like, this was really cool. It was really awesome. You know, we also have, and this is you're hearing about this first. Here's your first bit. We also have a b.p.r.d embroidered patch coming out.
ooh, that's gonna be
Yeah,
a big one,
yeah, I think so. It's kind of something I've always wanted. So Mike and I talked about it a while back, and so we're making that happen. Yeah, so I'm
great,
pretty excited. I'm pretty excited for that. I'm pretty excited to kind of get that out in the world. You know, because that b.p.r.d logo, for the pin and stuff, that's that's my drawing. Like that's
right, right,
me. That's because you'll notice there's subtle little differences from the one in the book or whatever. And it's because it's all me. It
right,
was not all me. I mean, I'm not like I created this thing, but like I took it and I just kind of I made it my own. I made line thicknesses uniform, just different stuff like that. So I've always loved how simple and cool that logo is, and just kind of like to kind of like literally hand draw it and then redraw it in the computer.
right.
I was always been really kind of proud of my take on it. So so yeah, I'm,
Well, I
I'm
think you have a
excited.
lot of things to be proud of here. You're,
Thanks, man. Thanks.
you,
No, no. I mean, it's really all the wonderful, wonderful folks. John Thompson. I forgot. I left him out. John Thompson's the one who sculpted Mahomes Bell. You know.
okay,
Um. And I love that piece. I love how that piece came out. I love
sure.
everything about that piece. You know. I love. People were like, "Oh, does it really dig?" I'm like, yeah.
Hey, are you
It's like,
uh, are you familiar with the Hellboy Book Club podcast?
oh, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not.
It's
Maybe I should
it's
be.
still pretty new. You may not have had a chance to hear it yet. I believe they're in about the start of their third month, maybe
Okay.
broadcasting, but they have the bell and they dinged it on the show for the people who haven't heard it yet. So
Oh,
we had a
that's
little
cool.
live demonstration there.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing too. It's like it's gotta like it can't not ding. And like there was some like, well, does it have a clapper? I was like, yeah, it has a clapper. Like
Sure.
if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. I mean that's I will say like the stuff that we've done with Lock and Key and with Mike and then with all the other stuff that we've worked with, people dig what we do and people dig our attention to detail. So that's really flattering. It really is. When people come to us with their projects and say, "Hey, we'd love to work with you." That's really yeah, it's really flattering. It really is. I mean, come on. You
Sure.
know.
And no
You know.
question that shows in your work. I think everybody really appreciates what you do and how you do and the fact that you do it at all.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you, man. It means a lot. It means a lot, and thanks for having me. I
Hey,
mean,
thanks for being here.
oh, definitely, man, definitely. And I mean, I love. There's such a. I live in, I work in such a bubble sometimes. Where it's like I'm just kind of, and I don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook really, but I love, like that Mike has such a presence and then Hellboy and then the b.p.r.d slash Hellboy slash Mike fan base is just like so strong and so invested. I love it. I mean, it's like this is great. It's great, and I
Sure.
love to kind of hear what people want and what people like. Oh, I want that too. you know, it's like the Lord the Order of the Fly ring. It's
Okay.
like I've got that all kind of sketched out. Like, how do you do this and how do you do it right? Type of thing. And it's like, excuse me.
Sure.
I've had that worked out for a while, but it's just a matter of like, okay, where does it fall and everything we got going on.
Well, I'm looking
But
forward to that one.
yeah, that should be pretty cool. But again, what do you do? Do you make it demon sized? or do you make it, you know, in a generic size so people can wear it, you know,
Sure.
type of thing, right? That
I think you have to go human size, right? If people are
I
gonna
know,
want to
right?
wear that,
I know, right? Versus some size 22 ring that's gonna, you know,
right?
that they can, you know, that only Shaquille O'Neal could wear, you know,
Right.
type of thing. But
Nobody
yeah, I
wants a
know.
necklace ring.
You're right. But then, you know, it's one of those things, like, unless you offer multiple sizes, and maybe that's something we have to do. Like, maybe
Yeah.
we have to offer this in multiple sizes. So, you know, if you're an 11, then that's what it is, you know, type of thing. But that's a tough one. That's a tough, you know, we'd
Very.
have to almost like, all right, you know, tell us your ring size and don't lose any weight in the 6 months that this takes us to make this.
Well, I think you give people a lot to look forward to here, and like I said, I think they're already very happy for what you've given them in the past. So let's wrap up today and say, where can people find your stuff and find you?
Oh yeah, if you can go to skeletonkrewstudio.com and just check us out and then and look around at everything we're working on, not just the mic stuff, but the lock and key stuff. We work on a bunch of cool stuff. We want to work with a bunch of cool books, a bunch of amazing artists.
I know
And it's
our writer Danny's a big fan of the shirtless bear fighter. He's very
oh
anticipatory on the release.
oh yeah, that's actually due to hit the ocean next month, so that'll
Oh, there
be
you
in
go.
our hands. Yeah, we're those should be those I think we're going to be shipping in December. Those shirtless bear fighters, and if people got the 2-pack, they even get the bear rug. We did something cool with that one. Because you know how like the plush has the little, it's called the bum tag, that little like, okay, you know, here's the materials, all that stuff, you know, that little tag, that every plush toy.
Sure.
So the I on the back side of that, you'd have to know the book, but on the back side of that tag, I printed a red polka dot pattern, and I
Uh-oh.
sewed it to the bear's left paw. So
Oh.
when the rug is lying down, it looks like that scrap of fabric that's from the girl's
Yeah.
dress.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh man.
it's the little inside. Everyone likes the inside joke, right? You know.
Totally.
But
I think
again,
that's
you're the first person to know about that outside the creative team.
cool.
People,
Thank you.
you
A
know.
lot of
So
exclusives here.
yeah.
Well,
So
thank
when people
you. Oh, go ahead.
no, yeah. So when people get it, they'll kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, that tag had to go someplace, right? So why not incorporate it into the piece?
Totally. Yeah, that's brilliant. I guess that's what people should expect from you.
Well,
Thank you for
expect
joining us
something
on
cool.
Mignolaverse.com, and let's make sure we do this again when you have some new stuff to talk about, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Man. I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
Thank you for joining us, and again, you can go to Skelton, Skelton, Crew Studios
Yeah,
.com or the Big
studio.com.
Cartel, just .com. Okay,
Yeah. And then
and
go to Big Cartel from there and check us all out.
okay, and we'll include links with this, and hopefully some juicy preview photos if you're so inclined.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's see what we can do.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, and thank you guys for tuning in to Mignolaverse.com.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.